What is up, boys, girls, ladies, and gentlemen? This is a long-awaited video that I have not made for a while because I was planning to do it the next time I migrated, but that obviously didn't happen when I came to 1484. I am migrating again. Cat's out the bag. If you guys didn't already know, I probably dropped an announcement about it at this point. I'm going to 1365. Shout out to those guys. And I wanted to make a video over what I think should be looked for when you migrate. Now, this isn't the end all be all. I'm a very competitive player. I'm a little sweaty. Okay, I got it. And what I look for may not be all encompassing. So if y'all think you know something in terms of migration that you should be looking for that you think I didn't cover in this video, y'all can feel free to leave it in a comment and I will almost certainly respond to it. When it comes to migration, guys, number one, if you guys like the content, please like, follow, subscribe, join the Discord, all that good stuff. When you are looking for something in a kingdom, there's a long list of stuff you need. But at a bare minimum, you're looking for a nice, friendly, respectable kingdom that runs itself cleanly and well, that you generally have fun in, and does not lose all the time. Those are kind of the basic ones. Now, I'm going to split this up into a few different sections. So we're going to have early game, which I consider like KVK 1 to 3. We have mid game, which is going to be your Season of Conquest transition, where you unlock T5 and you probably have like 1 or 2 budget marches. Or we're going to have late game, where you have 3+ quality marches and you've really determined what you want to do with the game. These are probably like the 3 stages of when you should consider migrating and for what reasons. They're pretty simple stages of the game. In terms of early game, we're talking about something where it is super duper easy to move. You're like maybe under 25 million power. It's probably going to cost you between 1 and 4 passports. This is chump change. You should be able to do this a couple times if you really need to. Early game, there are only a few things you need when you're pre-T5. You need to make sure you're not in a civil war. You should never feel like you're in danger of getting zeroed, basically ever. If there's a civil war, there's some circumstances where it's not too bad, where if it lasts like a couple days, if you're getting good GC, you think you're still going to win KVK 1 and they're just booting a rogue alliance off the shelf, okay, fine. However, if this is a civil war that's going on for like a week or something like that, that's cause for concern. Be aware of what's going on. Another thing that you need to be looking for is if it is poorly run. Again, people coming back to KVK 2 that claim that they're hot shit, that have been playing the game for 5 years, that have 2 billion KP, are probably not actually going to know exactly what they're doing. I would check out the how to spot fake fighters video if you guys are interested in that. That'll probably give you some more context on what I mean when I say people that are going to run your kingdom poorly. They're just people who have been playing for a long time but aren't necessarily educated. Again, a kingdom that is poorly run but might still be winning KVK 1 and 2, that might still be okay, because the next thing on the list, which is losing your first, second, or third KVK, those are really, really bad. Your first 3 KVKs are really, really, really important for you to win, especially as you're getting to T5. Your early game is not really over until you hit T5, I think. With that in context, try to make sure that you win your first couple KVKs. If you have to migrate a couple times, it's totally fine, but make sure you've made your best judgment every time. The next thing I would say is if you're low in gold chests. If you're not getting at least 3 to 6 gold chests a day, I'd probably migrate to another kingdom. If you're a competitive player, you're looking to get T5 at a competitive time, why would you get less gold chests when you can get more? Every gold chest is going to be speeds in your pocket. Get as many as possible. And finally, I'm going to say not being in a high quality alliance. Again, having low GC and not being in a high quality alliance are very similar, but you're just looking for like events to be posted at some point. You're looking for like guys who are doing like Ark of Osiris. You're going to look for like a couple farm alliances. Like, it is not rocket science. As long as you're in like the top alliance of a KD, or at least getting 3 to 6 GC a day, and you're not in a civil war and you're winning KVK, that's totally okay. You don't need kingdom cohesion. Not everybody has to speak English. Like, not a lot of things have to happen. You're just trying to win these first couple KVKs and then you can leave. Early game, super easy, super simple, super fast. Next is mid game. In mid game, it's a little bit harder to move. We're talking this might be like 20, 25 passports. You're like maybe a little under 65 million power. You've just hit T5. You've just gotten 1 or 2 marches and you're trying to make yourself work as a mid game player. Your early game KD, either A, you've outgrown it, or B, it has grown up and you are now fighting within it. Something that's really important to know is if you're going to stay in a KD, the requirements are really important. Mid game, you only have access to 1 or 2 marches. You're not going to be able to put in the same amount of work as somebody who's been playing for like 4 years. Now, when I say you're not going to be able to put in the same amount of work, if you're not able to put in any work, maybe it's more important for you to move to a C or a D kingdom where you know they're not going to zero you. Maybe it's important that you don't blow up too much power. Now, if you can still put in some decent amount of work, then maybe you could go to a higher seed kingdom and be okay. It's very, very, very important that you consider what can you do, especially when you finish your KVK 3, and consider what will you do when compared to the requirements. God forbid you get cleansed. There's no reason for that to happen when you have passports to move. The next thing that's really important is kingdom cohesion. Civil War, you shouldn't even be sniffing it at this stage of the game. No one should be thinking Civil War. There should be an LT rotation. Everybody should be kumbayaing. In fact, nobody should really want king. Everybody should be hot potatoing it to the next person because they don't want to pay any of the gems. Kingdom cohesion is really important. You guys should have like game night. You guys should be friends with each other. You guys should be talking. Speaking the same language starts to become a lot more important at this point. Kingdom cohesion is really, 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 really crucial. Another thing that I'll have on here is kingdom culture. Generally, it's a culture of fighting. What are your stats? What are your deads? How many farms do you have, right? You should not be seeing, oh, it's a drag to play this game. Like, I can't wake up and do this, or I can't do this, I can't do this. I'm lazy, lazy, lazy. Some kingdoms have a couple people like that, and they're kind of funny, but if their whole kingdom is acting like that, when it comes time for KVK, they're not going to put up the numbers you're looking for, especially if they're not putting up the gold chests you're looking for. Another thing you're going to be looking for is a clear event schedule. So if I see Shadow Legion, for example, I think Shadow Legion is probably going to be 2 or 3 days into the event, and it's probably going to be at like 15 or 20 UTC. That's because I've been in Whom for a minute, probably gonna be around 20, and I just know what the event schedule is going to be. But even if I didn't know what it was, I could open up the event schedule and I'd immediately see it. That is kind of what you should expect. Like, your event schedule should be like ahead of time. They should be using like this little calendar over here. It is not rocket science to just like go through these events and make them, you know, make them work for you. Alliance mobilization, you should be getting some mails over that, right? Another thing that you're gonna be looking for is a good title system. So whether this is a chat with titles or some other method of delivering titles to the vast majority of the kingdom, you should have your eyes peeled for that. I mean, that's something that any mid-lane kingdom should have. Maybe early game, if they don't have it, it's kind of whatever, as long as they're winning KVKs. Midway through the game, you should definitely have that. Another thing that you're gonna be looking for is like on-time announcements. For example, sometimes the Mightiest Governor event may have issues with it. There could be a point in time where like there's a rogue or some other bad actor that is going to damage the integrity of some of the events in your kingdom. You should be able to have plans made on the fly, and announcements should be coming out on time. They don't need to be coming out 2 weeks early. They don't need to be prophetic, but the announcements need to be quick and precise and decisive. There should be no questions as to what the announcements are. They should be coming out. You should have an announcements tab in the Discord, or, you know, a bunch of mails that are just coming at you with all the information you should possibly need. Another thing you should be looking for is permanent Arco Osiris teams. Arco Osiris teams should eventually just have like kind of like a mainstay, like 25 people, maybe 5 people revolving. Y'all should generally have the same plan week to week. That's just the mark of a kingdom that cares. It's not the mark of the best kingdoms ever, but like you should have at least 1 or 2 functional Osiris teams with people that care on it. Another important thing is a kingdom's reputation and how they engage in diplomacy with other kingdoms. So in KVK 1, 2, and 3, if your kingdom is just betraying everybody, or they didn't fight as much as they should have, or something like that, it does not matter. As long as they give you gold chests and as long as you win early game, it's fine. Mid game, your kingdom starts to matter. It's going to impact all your diplo moves. It's going to impact how often you win. It's going to impact how you feel about your kingdom as a whole. Because kingdoms that do not have a good reputation are just going to get left as soon as they lose, generally, and the kingdom will fracture. So it's very important that you care about your kingdom's reputation and their diplomacy in terms of how they're engaging with other kingdoms in KVK. If there's drama, you should be the first to know. You should be able to see screenshots. They should be able to provide everything you're looking for. It should not be a question of what they're doing. It should be a question of when are you finding out. Next is going to be the Mightiest Governor event and DKP. The Mightiest Governor event is really important, obviously. Some kingdoms are going to rig everything for the top players. That's okay to some extent. Other kingdoms are going to use your deaths and kill points to give you points to bid on different MGEs. That is generally ideal. If you're a mid-game player and you're putting some numbers on the board, you want to be able to compete for these commanders. You do not want to just be giving them all to players that may or may not be fighting because you're in a smaller kingdom. I really like DKP. I remember when I was king of my kingdom, giving away DKP in favor of rigging was probably one of the worst decisions I had made. It wasn't good. I should have never signed off on it. It was not epic and it was not based. Another important thing is kingdom cleansing. On the topic of deaths and kill points, okay? If players are not meeting these goals, they should be axed. You should have absolute bare minimum goals, and short of having an earthquake or having, you know, being in an actual legitimate war or having like a family member die, you should not be able to skirt your deaths and kill points. You should have to delete troops, or you should have to be zeroed. It is absolutely imperative that kingdoms cleanse. This is why older kingdoms are so much stronger than younger kingdoms, is generally because they have cleansed their fighters so many more times, whereas younger kingdoms are untested. How many hard KVKs have you had? Do you really know if your guys are ride or die? Your kingdom that you go to in the mid game should know that. Another thing here is gold chests. Gold chests are less important than they were early game because you're already T5. However, they're still important. You still want like 3 to 6 per day. If you have to go down to like 2 to 4 per day, that's okay. You're just making sure that you get at least something, because gold chests are still important. Finally, I would say probably the king rotation and getting like consistent like buffs into your kingdom is pretty important. The king should kind of be like a hot potato. Like everybody should be throwing it. Nobody should really want to be holding on to king, but it should still be rotating around. You should have a king on basically 24/7, and that king should always be putting on like buffs that you're looking for. So finally is going to be the late game. This is going to be where things get a lot more permanent and a lot more specific. Late game, you have to start to think, what kind of player are you? Are you a high spender? Are you a really big fighter? Are you more of a utility player? Do you want to go into leadership, right? These are all the things you should be considering, because Late game is very similar to mid game. It's gonna have basically all the same requirements. However, there's gonna be a lot more permanence. So there's gonna be a lot more specific things, a lot of quality of life things you're gonna be looking for. You're gonna be looking for a kingdom with good pedigree. When I say pedigree, they just have to have a good history of like cleansing their kingdom, of being respectable, of not talking too much trash in LKC, not being toxic. They just have to be like, you know, relatively strong and reputable players in general. You need to have some kind of like set of like OG players or experienced players that can look at your kingdom and go, ah, yes, like I played with this kingdom a couple times and I like them. You should be able to ask like some of the older players and they should immediately be able to be like, oh yeah, like you made a good decision going here. If everybody is telling you a kingdom is bad and you think a kingdom is good, chances are you are wrong and not the world. Humble yourself that there are players who have played this game for way, way, way longer and they have made the drama of this game their lives. These are the people that you should cite and the people that you should ask about when looking for a kingdom to go to. Announcements. We talked about announcements coming out on time in a mid-lane kingdom, you know, where you're going like when you're just hitting T5, but your final kingdom, the kingdom you're really looking to be in, these announcements should be crisp and they should be early. There should be nothing that's surprising you. You should know your allies as soon as you get in because your kingdom's played like 15 KVKs. You've got a bunch of OG ass players. You have a bunch of leadership that knows exactly what they're doing. They're giving you the events. They're giving you fighting. They're giving you war plans. Everything that is coming out boom, 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 boom. There should be no surprises. Everything should be decisive and everything should be quick. Another thing that I think you guys should be looking for is a content creator in the kingdom of your choice. Every kingdom worth their salt has at least like 1 or 2 content creators because people who are really proud of their kingdom generally want to show it off. They don't have to be absolutely ecstatic content creators, but if you see somebody making content in a kingdom that you're interested in, you can just ask them about their kingdom and they'll generally tell you good things if they like it and bad things if they don't. They'll generally give you a more honest representation unless they're like king of the kingdom. Another thing is king skills. King skills are something that the king can do where he clicks on one of his troops and then he has access to a little buff here. It costs about 500 gems. It lasts for 10 minutes and it gives a damage buff. You want king skills going off 24/7 when you're in KVK. You want a billion king skills coming through. With this context, it is crucial that whenever you talk to somebody, if you're like, hey, like how many king skills do you usually find yourself burning? Like you need to identify who has all of the gems that is just going to be spamming king skills like that. Another thing that's going to be really important is going to be rally and garrison players. You should know who your rally garrisons are. That doesn't just have to be for Ark of Osiris. That has to be for the entire KD period. There should be enough rally garrison to make sure that basically 24 hours a day, you have access to at least 1 person to 2 people that can hold flags and at least 1 person to 2 people that can rally flags. I'm talking max tech, max comms, good gear. You should have at least a couple of these guys in whatever final KD you choose. Another really important set of skills that you need is you're going to need territory planners and war planners. You should not have to run these KDs. They should already have a bunch of captains that are like, okay, markers are going here. This is what king's going to be here. Here's your titles. We're switching garrisons. They should be shot calling. They should be setting out the territory way in advance. The vast majority of players shouldn't know where everything is dropping. They should just know that things are going to drop and you should be there on time. These are things that should be taking care of you. A final KD, you should not have to be the leadership for this KD. They should be strong for themselves. You should have a solid migration team. You should be seeing fresh blood basically every season. If you guys are Imperium when you're dropping Imperium, or if you're like a C or a B or an A, whenever you drop down to B, C, or D, you should be able to bring in more new blood after you've culled the weak and keep moving forward with that because you want to keep refining your KD. You should have a good migration team. You should have a migration server. And another thing, on the topic of territory and war planners, a territory planner should also have a bunch of farm alliances. All of these farm alliances should generally have like 1 troop flags buildings. There should be updates on how many credits each one has to make sure that you guys always have enough forts. And if you guys have a bunch of farms should generally be allowed to be used for deads. So when it comes to DKP, your T4 deads on your farms should be able to transfer to your overall deads on your main to some extent. It is really, really, really important that you guys can use your farms for deads. That just is the meta of the game right now. A lot of people have at least 5 farms, and each one of those farms can get 500,000 tier 4 dead every single season. So 5 farms, 2.5 million T4 dead. That should be able to go straight in your pocket. That shouldn't be something you donate to the KD. That should be something they ask you to do and recognize. Again, there are certainly more things that you can look for in a KD, whether that be early game, mid game, or late game. These are some of the things that really stuck out to me that I'm specifically looking for. I'm migrating to 1365. I don't expect every single person to wake up and decide they're going to go to an Imperial Kingdom, and not everything on this list must happen. a lot of the things on this list are important. If they don't have some of them, they should be red flags, but it's not necessarily like you should just execute anybody that doesn't have this stuff. I get it, not every single kingdom is sweating bullets every single time they see any kind of vulnerability, but again, if this is going to be your final kingdom, if you're using like 40, 50 passports to get to point A to point B, you better make sure that point B is good. There are perhaps a ton of things that I missed, and again, if you guys have any comments for things that I missed, feel free to go to the comments below the video and type in whatever you want, and I will be sure to read them. And if anything is really good, I might consider pinning it. One quick disclaimer on top of the other disclaimer I already did is going to be the dangers of a dead kingdom. If you are looking for a kingdom that doesn't have anybody in it because you want to win a bunch of 20 gold head events or a bunch of Mightiest Governor events, I implore you to not do that. That will fundamentally change the way you engage with the game, and generally I have found players that do that and then try to come out are not the same. They're generally players that become essentially too used to not having to fight for anything. They try to fight in like an actual KD, and then they decide that it's boring, it's not the same as it was, and they give up. Or they give up when they are in a dead kingdom because it's simply too boring to try and maintain. Another thing is that people are generally considering themselves, they're like, like I'm in a dead kingdom. You're probably not actually in a dead kingdom. Most dead kingdoms are going to have 1 or 2 heavy spenders, and these heavy spenders are going to be eating all the events, and you're going to be competing with them. Again, this is my list of what I generally want to look for when I migrate. I might make a part 2 if I miss too much stuff on this. But again, guys, thank you so much for watching. If you guys enjoy content like this, make sure you drop a like, a follow, consider subscribing and hitting the notification bell. If you guys want to send anything to the PO box, I'm talking like shirts with your kingdom on it, snacks, drawings, whatever you want to send, anything cool. The PO box is in the description below. We're going to make a video with a bunch of the stuff we get there. If you guys are looking for coaching, I do coaching for $35 a session on stream and $75 a session off stream. I quite often advise people if they should migrate or not. If you're spending like more than like $200 or $300 a month, perhaps coaching is for you. I've coached about 292 players by the recording of this video, and after the recording of this video, it will obviously be more than 300. So if you guys are interested in that type of thing, you go to the Discord in the description below and you make a ticket. If you guys are interested in notifications when I go live or contact me while I'm not live, go into that same Discord, go into the role selection tab and turning on announcement and stream notifications. If you guys are interested in supporting the channel financially, please consider donating to the Streamlabs link in the description below. And with that being said, guys, I am done plugging.